NFL roster cutdown day is tomorrow afternoon, and the Chiefs are going to have some very difficult decisions to make on a couple of different players. But if you guys are new to this channel, my name is Michael Darcy, and you're watching the KC Sports Report. Do me a big time favor and hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe for more daily Chiefs coverage. As you guys can see, I'm recording here live from the radio station. Today was my first day as the full-time producer on The Zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB. And part of the reason that I took this job is because I want to go absolutely all in on YouTube this year. And so if you guys enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend to subscribe. We are going to try to absolutely grow this channel as big as humanly possible. But with that being said, I want to talk about roster cutdown day. It's tomorrow, August 26th at 3 p.m. Central. The Chiefs are going to have to get down to that final 53, and they're going to have some very difficult decisions to make. And specifically at positions like running back and cornerback, we pretty much know at this point what, the wide receiver room is going to look like. Tyquan Thornton's going to make this team, but maybe Nico Remigio is battling for that number 6, number 7 spot, depending on what they do with Rashee Rice. So I think that there's a lot of positions that are going to be decimated tomorrow after that, final 53 cut down. So I guess what I wanted to talk about in this video is a couple guys that I think might be on the bubble and might be on their way out of Kansas City. The first guy that comes to mind is cornerback Joshua Williams. We saw him play deep into that third preseason game, late into the third quarter, and I'm not sure if the Chiefs are really high on him. This is a guy that I thought was maybe going to be traded earlier this offseason. His guaranteed money is over $3 million. Nazeeh Johnson restructured his contract to make like $1.2 million guaranteed. And so I think that Joshua Williams could be one of those guys that ends up either getting cut or traded. And I think cut is probably the safer alternative to those options. Another guy that might be on the outside is running back Elijah Mitchell. The Chiefs brought in Mitchell earlier this offseason. They signed him to a one-year deal. I think it was $2.5 million with like a little over $1 million guaranteed. And so far throughout, offseason training camp and in the preseason games, hasn't really given you any reason to be excited. You got guys like Brashard Smith and Kareem Hunt and even Carson Steele, who I did not think was going to make this team. He is getting a lot of reps in the early, first and second team offense in the preseason, so he might make this team. And so when we're talking about guys that might be on the roster bubble, guys that might get cut, Elijah Mitchell and Joshua Williams, I think, are the biggest two that come to mind. Now, I personally think that Carson Steele shouldn't make this team. I think that you've got so many other great options, but I think that Andy Reid and this offense want to utilize a fullback, and so maybe he finds his way back on this roster, and, maybe the Chiefs will find some role for him in 2025, but last year, he made the team as a UDFA out of UCLA, had a couple fumbles, and kind of just got put on ice for the rest of the season. So I'm not sure really what they have in Carson Steele. I think he's a developmental guy, but right now this roster is so ready to compete for another Super Bowl. It's like, can you afford that roster spot? Especially when you're going to have to look at, tight end is a perfect example. Robert Tonyan looked fantastic in training camp and in the preseason. I think he's going to make this team, but, you also got to look at Jared Wiley, a guy they spent a very high pick on a couple of years ago. Actually, it was just last year's draft, and he's been battling with an injury, and he's coming back, but he's played in the preseason games and looked, all right. So, this is going to be a very interesting day to see where the Chiefs decide to hold guys on the roster that, maybe they have more depth at this position, but not so much in this area. And I think that you saw it yesterday with them trading for Derek Nottie. Bringing him back into the fold just means that, some of the other guys on this defensive line and specifically in that defensive tackle room might not make this team. Like Marlon Tuapatilo, or I can't even pronounce his name, but, I think that the Chiefs are going to have to suffer in certain position groups more than others. Maybe if they end up taking, 10 defensive backs between the safeties and the corners, Joshua Williams ends up being one of them that gets cut out. I don't know if Mike Edwards is going to make this team. If we just look at the safety room right now, they've got Brian Cook, you got Shamari Connor, you've got Jaden Hicks, and I think that they're going to end up playing Chris Rowland Wallace as a safety. That's 4 right there. I don't really know if they're going to take Mike Edwards, and it really just depends if they take 6 cornerbacks or end up going 5 and 5 between the safeties and the corners. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. What do you think is the biggest cut candidate for this team? Do you think it's Joshua Williams? Do you think it's Carson Steele or Elijah Mitchell? I think there are, a lot of very popular names that are in. There's guys on this team that are going to get cut very quickly. Like, we don't really have to think about it too much. But then there's some guys that some people have making the final roster and some people don't. And I want to talk about some guys that might end up being some roster casualties. And we'll do that right after this ad break. This video is sponsored by my wonderful friends over at DM Injury Law. Injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation, but time is critical. Rely on the experienced personal injury attorneys at DM Law, Kansas City and Missouri's top injury law firm. DM Law is a full-service personal injury practice supported by a large team of investigators, case managers, medical records specialists, and more. And best of all, you don't pay unless they win. DM Law operates on a contingency fee basis, so no fees unless they win your case. And they also provide free consultations. So if you've been injured, don't wait. You can contact DM Law today for a free consultation and learn how they can help you pursue the compensation you deserve. Let them handle the fight while you focus on healing. Hurt in a car wreck? Call Mike. Remember, Mike's got this. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisement. Thanks to DM Injury Law for sponsoring this video. At Rice Real Estate Group, they're more than just a real estate team. They're a full-service partner in residential, commercial, and investment properties. They specialize in guiding clients through every stage, from the buying and selling process to handling complex, short sale situations with ease. Their passion lies in the personal one-on-one care they bring to every client relationship, ensuring each experience is tailored, smooth, and successful. Here it's all about building trust, delivering expertise, and ensuring every client feels valued throughout their journey. For more information, call Marla Rice at 816-819-9333. Huge thanks to the sponsors that have supported this channel all offseason long. Now, getting back into the main portion of this video, the Chiefs have so much depth. Really everyone that ends up getting cut tomorrow could find their way on another roster. And I think that something that we need to mention is, with this roster cut down date looming, some people might think that, okay, well, once the Chiefs cut down to 53, their roster's set. Well, that's not necessarily the case. The Chiefs actually last year signed guys like Juju Smith-Schuster and Samaje Perine after that initial 53-man cut down, because guess what? All the other teams have to cut down their rosters as well, and so good players become available. And so maybe the Chiefs will see this as an opportunity to pick up someone for depth, but I also think that the Chiefs might have a much deeper roster than they've had in years prior. Like, we've already talked about the running back room difference between this year and last year. Last year, you went into training camp with Carson Steele and Isaiah Pacheco. Kareem Hunt was a midseason addition, and so right now, the floor of that running back room got raised up to here. And so I think that you see this along the entire offense, along the defense. The wide receiver room's deeper. I think the cornerback room is deeper with Christian Fulton now in the mix. Now, you obviously have guys like Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams who have their moments, but I do think that, Christian Fulton makes that room better. You're going to have a healthy Jalen Watson, and Trent McDuffie's just going to be Trent McDuffie. So I do think that this team, top to bottom, is much deeper this year than it was last year. And so the Chiefs are going to have some very tough decisions to make. And Brett Veach, I do not envy you today. I don't envy you tomorrow, because that's going to be really tough. And in fact, the media is going to talk to Andy Reid before roster cutdown day. And so basically tomorrow afternoon, Andy Reid is going to speak to the media. They're going to go out and practice and then they're going to have these cut downs. So a guy that might end up getting cut tomorrow at 3 could be practicing for the team beforehand, and then at 3 o'clock, they got to clean out their locker and just, get out of here. So that's really tough. But like I said, I think the Chiefs are in a really good spot. I trust Brett Veach. I also really like, the depth on this team, and especially with the addition of Derek Nottie, you've got a lot of different players that can play in different situations. And I think that was something that lacked from this team last year. You had, I keep referencing the running back room, but you had Isaiah Pacheco, at least for the first couple weeks of the season, and he was really solid, but you didn't have someone for short yardage. Now you have someone in Brashard Smith, who you saw in that first, or I guess the third preseason game, catch that ball downfield. You can utilize him as a wide receiver on third down. You've got Kareem Hunt as your short yardage back. And Isaiah Pacheco looks healthy and as explosive as ever. And so now you've got a real, trio there. And, it's like that all across the team. I feel really good about the wide receiver room and the depth that they have in there. Tight end, maybe the deepest that they've had in a long time. And so I feel really good about the state of this team. But I do want to hear from you guys down in the comment section below. What player do you think is going to be cut from this Chiefs team? And do you feel good about the depth of this roster going into week 1? The Chiefs have under 2 weeks until they head to Sao Paulo, Brazil for week 1 against the Chargers. And so football is almost officially back, and that is a very exciting thing. But guys, that is all I have for this video. In conclusion, I just wanted to thank you guys, because a big reason why I ended up actually getting offered the producer job for The Zone is because they saw what I had going here on YouTube, and I just want to thank you guys, because without you, none of this would be possible. And so hopefully we can continue growing the channel, continue growing the community of great Chiefs fans that we have. And I'm super confident that this year is going to be a very big one. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you. Hit that like button, subscribe for more daily Chiefs content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.